USPIE founder and president Sherry Few. Once again, it is something very controversial, but U.S. parents involved in education. Most of us agree. The ones who don't, I can't imagine what they're thinking or what's wrong with them, but this has just gone too far, and I can't stand it anymore. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Fawn. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay. When I was looking into this last night before I went to bed, and then I had a hard time sleeping because I was looking up just videos of kids and parents at school council meetings and just different meetings reading from the books that are available to their children, not just in school libraries, but at public libraries. And it read like a triple X Shades of Grey. Oh my gosh. Shocking.
Yes, they are shocking. And that's why in this case, the judge wouldn't even review the books. The only exposure she had to the books was what the lawyers put into the complaint. So she turned a blind eye. She wouldn't even look at it, which is so reflective of what you see in those films of people at school board meetings reading the books, and their mics get cut off. Yep. They're told they can't read it because it's too profane for adults, and yet somehow it's okay for children.
Well, it's almost like an instruction manual on how to get pregnant when you're 12, to be honest with you, or how to be gay when you're 12, or how to be a lesbian. Right. It's just, kids are going to grow up to be what they're supposed to be. Let's just put it that way. We all have a predisposed purpose on this planet. We do. I believe that from our Lord and Savior. I truly believe we're made in His image and we're here for a reason. But I really don't think it's become a pervert when I'm 11.
No, absolutely not. And so that's what's so sad about this is we're talking about shaping children's minds and lives, affecting their entire lives by these things that are being pumped into their heads, things that are often not true, like the whole lie of the fact that you can be a boy if you were born a girl. They're being groomed.
Yeah.
And so, even some of the gay community is against this. There's a whole organization called Gay Groomers.
Yeah.
And they think you should leave children alone. That adults can make decisions, which I've heard you say before. What they do is their own business. But with children, we cannot be pumping this into their minds. And Fawn, it's destroying children. I'm working with a group in Rhode Island to expose what happened there. And there was a middle school girl who was groomed by her school district for 2 years before her parents knew about it. She was living a double life, pretending to be a boy at school and then going home and pretending to be the girl that she was born to be. And for 2 years this went on until she finally attempted suicide. It was that devastating in her mind to deal with all of this.
I bet she felt like she had a split personality.
Exactly. That's exactly what the mother is saying. That's what it did to the child. And so there's a lawsuit, thank the Lord, that there's actually an organization in Rhode Island filed the lawsuit, and they're suing that school district. But this is just an example, because their argument often is, well, we have to make it safe for these children. If you don't let them transition, then they're going to commit suicide. Well, now we see the opposite happening. They did what it is they thought she needed, and she attempted suicide. They caused that.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand, the process of maturity and how much people change. I mean, I didn't have the same favorite color every year. So, it's like I do now, but I'm old now. When I was a kid, I was stupid and reckless and so many different things. But I really do think that having the kids able to be exposed to this kind of thing is molestation. I really feel like it's on the same level. It's no different than if somebody touches them the wrong way and puts these ideas into their head that it's okay to do these things. Them being able to access these books and read them like there's some sort of literature that's okay for them to be reading is no different than molestation.
Well, I agree with you. And if you or I were to take these books to a young child and encourage them to read them, we could get locked up.
Yeah.
That's a
and
criminal
we
act.
should.
Yeah.
And we
Agreed.
should. Yeah. Now I know since the beginning of time, little boys have been peeping through holes trying to see boobs and whatever else they can do. It's a tale as old as time because little boys are curious like that. Most little girls are not. We don't want to see that kind of stuff till we're a little bit older. We're not as prone to being provocative as the little boys are, just because that's how boys are built. There's a big difference between the two. So can you imagine a young woman getting a hold of a book like this? I think it would have scared the hell out of me when I was 10 years old.
Yes, and the other thing is a child's mind is still developing. The brain is not fully developed. So interjecting these kinds of things into the brain while it's still processing, while it's still maturing, they don't even reach full cognitive ability, meaning they can make reasonable choices until they're 25 years of age.
Yeah, we'll go with 18 because that's what the law is. But even then, I'm wondering.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing about this case that is so troubling to me is the fact that this judge, this unelected official that has no relationship with that community that elected that school board, is overriding the decisions of every member of that community because they elected that school board to represent them, and that's what they did. They represented their values. They said these books are out, and then comes this lesbian judge appointed by Biden, comes in and says, no, you guys are too conservative. You made that decision just because you're conservative, and you can't do that. And overrode every citizen in that community's choice.
And keep in mind, a lot of the gay community does not want their children to read these books. They may have thought differently until they had children, but once you have a child, your mind changes about what your child should be exposed to. And I don't care if you adopted that child. I don't care if you're a gay couple who adopted the child. I don't care who you are who adopted that child. When you adopt that child, that is your child. And you should be in charge of what they can and can't see before their age of adult. So I think the argument just keeps coming back to these are our kids. Who do they think they are saying, yes, they should be allowed to see this because I think you're too conservative? No.
Well, I agree, of course. And so the dichotomy here is the fact that I believe the judge is basing her decision on her own pretext.
Yeah.
And yet she's accusing them of the very same thing. So, yeah.
But she's got a robe. Yeah.
Well, we have some really runaway judges in this country, and we're seeing it every day as decisions are being rendered. And I think we need to start rethinking about how judges are chosen. I think they should be elected and not appointed, and be accountable to the people.
Yeah. Well, and that would take so long, but we do here in Missouri have a vote on whether or not a judge should be allowed to keep their seat. We do that here. So,
that's good.
Yeah. So if a judge is being completely ridiculous and out of line, we'll say take him off the bench. We vote.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think every state should do that.
In South Carolina, we cannot do that where I live. Our judges are appointed, and we have super majorities of Republicans in both chambers. And we still have the same problem here in South Carolina, and we have no say.
That would drive me crazy. I would move. I would literally move because, my kids are not perfect. My kids are not, they're most of the time not even good citizens. They're working through it. They're doing the best that they can do. But I can't even imagine if they had been exposed to this kind of stuff. I remember the day when I walked in on my youngest son going on to a porn site for the first time. That was the first time I ever hit that child with a shoe. That was the first time. And I was like, you cannot be on these things because it can change who you are as a human being. And it actually did. It changed how he viewed females and how they should be treated and what they should be expected to do and the whole thing. I mean, it changes a person. And that's worrisome when a child is as young as the kids we're talking about. So let's clarify. How young were the kids, and where were these materials available?
Oh, goodness. You might have stumped me on that one. I'm not sure how old they were, but this was in Colorado. It was in Colorado, and it's actually books from the school libraries, but it doesn't say what age. I apologize.
That's okay. But
I'm sure
that's school.
Middle school, younger.
Yeah, school is school. So, you got to be under 18 to be in school usually, unless you're flunked 17 times and you're 22 and you're a senior. That's a little different. But what are you proposing we do about this? I know you said elect judges, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, because people will just look for a judge that fits their ideals and vote them in. And in urban areas, you're going to be screwed anyway.
Yes, well, I don't think we give up. I think we have to start thinking out of the box. Just like when you said it would take a long, long time. Well, there are so many dysfunctional parts of government schools right now, and the way we viewed it, and the way we have just traditionally done it. We have to understand that it's not working. It's bad. It's not educating children. It's in some cases harming children, like we're talking about now. And we've just got to start thinking out of the box and rethink. Should government be raising our children?
No.
And I know that sounds far-fetched, but this is how I'm beginning to think, because you've told me several times, Fawn, that there are some families who can't afford to get their kids out of the government schools. And I understand that,
yeah.
And I'm hearing that argument from other people, and I'm really giving it some thought, because we have to start looking at the fact that we have, as a society, become dependent on the government to raise our children. That's the bottom line.
Well,
they're raising kids, and they're raising them away from our values, teaching them to be anti-American. Our country is going to collapse if we don't put a stop to this.
Yeah, well, and we've allowed it to happen. It snuck up on us. It slowly crept in from the 60s, and now here we are. Because the people who are doing acid and, sex, drugs, and rock and roll are now running the country. That's why. So we have to be careful. Very, very careful. And they're sitting in judge robes, and they don't think the way conservatives think. And this is very highly concerning to me. And a lot of people are sending me a message saying sex is a natural thing and children should know about it. I don't need my child to read a book that is an instruction manual on where to put things. That can happen naturally when they fall in love. So I just disagree that the school should be this involved with stuff. Now, luckily, we don't have much of a problem with that around here, but I'm telling you right now, if my kid brought home a book like that and I found out about it, there would be hell to pay.
Well, and I think whoever made that comment is wrong. Sex is not natural for children.
Nope.
It is not natural.
Nope.
That is natural, a natural evolution for adults when they have feelings for one another, but it is not natural for children. It is harmful. And like you said, it started in the 60s with the sexual revolution. All of a sudden, everything was fine, and that's when we brought sex ed in the schools. We didn't even teach sex ed in the schools. We didn't talk about sex at all in schools before the 60s.
Yep.
And so that's where we made our mistake, is thinking that somehow children needed this information so they could be prepared for what? For their first sexual encounter at 12? No, that's what harms children. It creates babies, and we have fatherless children and single mothers who can't afford, to raise their kids on their own.
So we're at home saying nobody touches you in your swimsuit area. Nobody is to touch you anywhere like that. And then they check a book out of the library, tells you how to go touch people there. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. All right. Sherry Few is founder and president of USPIE. If they want to learn more about what you do, where do they go?
They go to USPIE, that's USPI.org, and
USPI.
Join the movement and check us out.
Check them out, please. Thank you, Sherry.
All right. Thank you, Yvonne.
Bye-bye.